Hello and welcome to Film Seizure. Today, we'd like you to make a reservation for yourself and Mr. Butts and Chuck Moore and Jeff Arbuckle and Jason Oliver.
Oh, I thought you were implying that I was Mr. Butts there.
I was going. Well, say hi, Mr. Butts. Jason.
Hi, everyone.
Jeff, how are you today?
You can refer to me by my birth name, IP Freely.
IP freely. All right. So today, as you know, by clicking on this link, you were tuning in for The Game, a 1997 film by David Fincher. I believe it's his third film. One in like a pretty good 3-film run with Seven, The Game, and I can't remember what's next. Oh my God.
I mean,
somebody will.
After The Game was Fight Club, so
yeah, Fight Club. Thank you.
And then Panic Room, then Zodiac.
Hey, we've now done the
Benjamin
trifecta. Then
we have. Well, I wouldn't call it trifecta. We haven't done his best movie,
which is
Zodiac.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say it was a Curious Case of Benjamin Button.
That's one I would like to revisit, because I do feel like I didn't care for it much when I saw it, but I think it's probably better than I gave it credit for.
Yeah, I need to revisit a lot of his after 2000 work.
I haven't really liked him much since Social Network, though.
I didn't like his newest one. I'll tell you that much.
I didn't either. It was okay, but not great.
But that doesn't matter right now because we're talking about The Game from 1997. This one, I was working at Sony or Lowe's Theaters, whatever you want to call it at the time. Huge fan of Seven and saw the trailer for this and like, oh, I'm going to see that shit like immediately. Thankfully, I got to see it for free because it played at our theater. And I remember it doing pretty well. Like people came to see The Game. Like I guess it made 110 million. Michael Douglas was still a draw at the time. Sean Penn. So for a little thriller, I think that's a pretty good turnout.
Yeah, I think based on his budget, it was considered a bit of an underperformer, though.
Yeah, I guess it only made like 40 million or near 40 million.
Yeah.
Over budget, anyway.
It definitely wasn't the juggernaut that Seven was. So if they were hoping for Seven money, they were disappointed for sure.
Yeah, I mean, this is a completely different kind of movie. Like, word of mouth on this isn't going to spread like it did for Seven, in my opinion. Like, people who saw Seven.
Yeah, I have a sneaking suspicion why the word of mouth on this one would not have been as successful as Seven.
Oh, yeah? Do you want to share or share later?
We'll get there. We'll get there.
So, did you guys see this in the theater when it came out?
Yeah.
I was trying to... So yesterday when I was watching, I was like, man, have I actually seen this movie?
Oh.
Because, like, I certainly remember Michael Douglas being in this movie. I certainly remember that creepy clown thing. But nothing of the movie was familiar to me whatsoever.
Interesting. Everything was familiar to me in this movie, and that's kind of part of the problem.
Well, I was about to say, not in the way that I would typically say this is familiar to me, because I will admit that my brain wandered a lot in this movie, which I think is kind of good and kind of bad. I don't know. We'll talk about it because.
We will. We'll talk about it.
We're going to talk about
That's the plan. That's the whole plan today, is to talk about it.
That's the whole plan. We'll get there because I don't know how I feel about this movie.
Interesting.
I do.
You know how I feel about this thing?
I do know how I feel about it mostly. I'm honestly more curious to know what Chuck's kids thought of it if they watched it with him.
They did not. I could not convince them to, unfortunately. I will say that my opinion of this
I want to know if it really works once, at least. If it really works once. What's your opinion, Chuck?
I mean, my opinion has changed on this movie from when I was whatever, I was 20 when this came out.
Yeah.
I've always maintained, and I still maintain, that I like it. It's just not as much anymore. And I think it's because that, like, Jason, what you mentioned, if it works once, that's good, but it's not like The Usual Suspects where there's like rewatch value
Right.
to
Right.
it. And maybe that's a reason it didn't make a ton of money too. People didn't revisit it in the theater like people would. Back in the days, people would go to the theater a lot and see the same movie multiple times.
I've done it.
Yeah.
I used to do a thing where it's like every new Bond movie I saw 7 times.
Sometimes I
like that.
I think about what I want to watch, like at home, and I'll be like, oh, I haven't seen, I don't know, The Game. We'll just say The Game. And then I'll start thinking in my head everything that happens in the movie. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to watch something else. It's not because it wasn't necessarily well made or entertaining, but it's because it's not going to surprise me anymore. And I don't think it's going to give me anything new, right? I'm not going to get any more out of it than I did the first time.
That's a totally valid thing, because like you can watch a movie and you can say, I like that movie, but I never need to see it again. You know, it's like I'm never going to feel like there are certain movies that I will always like. I mean, all those things, Jason, when I like literally shit my pants sitting next to you while watching Endgame, those scenes still make me shit my pants.
You didn't literally shit your pants,
No,
did you?
I didn't literally shit my pants.
Well, then don't say you literally shit your pants.
I sort of kind of shit my pants.
You definitely had like sweat sock thing going on.
Well,
I do
that was
remember
because
that.
of the rain. Yeah, it stormed. But no, that was.
I took my socks off and they were drying on the little ledge in front of me during Endgame.
Oh my god!
Oh my god!
I'm glad I was not at that showing.
You are your own enemy of movie theater people.
We were all the way in the back row. It was
doesn't
fine.
matter. There's still people in front of you.
Nobody.
I don't ever want to hear you complain about going to movie
It didn't
theaters
bother
ever again.
anybody. It didn't bother anybody's situation.
I'll tell you.
Anyway, my point was that I still get those
Improved
same,
mine though.
I still get those same like feelings, right? Like I still like there are action
Or crescendos.
scenes in a movie. Yeah, and like there are things that still affect me. I mean, like the reason why One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. By the way, last week we talked about the director. This week we're talking about the Academy Award-winning producer of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Michael Douglas.
Oh yeah.
But the reason why that's still I think the best movie I've ever seen is because I still feel the same way every time after the movie's over. So no, that's totally valid, Jason. I think one of the big confusions that people have when it comes to, looking at media or whatever is that the way they feel the first time they watch it must always be the same going for, and when something diverts that, they overcorrect. It's like, oh, I fucking hate that. Anyway, that's a long roundabout way of saying, Jason, you can still say you like this movie, but you don't really need it.
But here's the rub. I had to watch it again.
Well, sure.
For this discussion, and I didn't really like it. I wanted to like it.
Which is interesting, because you said it was a good one when I brought it up.
Yeah. And I just didn't really like it. I could not get into it. I was just fixated on the ending because I remember the third act so vividly, and I didn't love the third act the first time I saw this movie, especially like the ending. And it just kind of just sunk the whole movie for me watching it again. It just did. I was just like, because I knew where we were heading, and we were heading a place I just did not want to go. And I don't know. It's just the way it goes sometimes.
I should also mention this movie's been on the list for 2 years.
Yes, maybe there's a reason for that.
Well, I don't know. I don't know about that. I mean, I think it was originally slated for the summer of 2022. We took the summer off.
But I've had every opportunity to bring it up again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have agreed to it at any time too.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
I wouldn't have vetoed it. Yeah.
there's still other movies that are still left over from that slate that we cleaned out that we can pull from at any point.
Right.
I still have that folder of all the stuff I did to work up to it, and if you ever need to know what else we dumped, but no, I mean, I guess you are right in that at any point in time you could have brought this back. But I think let's take a step back and let's just kind of talk about the movie, because the funny thing is that, like I said, I don't really know how I feel, but there are a lot of really good things in this movie, and I think that there's a concept that is really interesting to me in this movie. I just don't know how it landed for me.
It's interesting because the movie is like there were ideas about this movie that I don't think I realized the first time I saw it in the theater, or even maybe I'm pretty sure I've seen it one or two times in between then and now. But it's so fucking A Christmas Carol, right? I mean, this is A Christmas Carol.
First thing I thought of, yeah.
It's A Christmas Carol meets Total Recall. I was going to say Total Recall, right?
Yeah.
With a little bit of David Mamet in there, like the long con thing is going on in this, or you think it's going on in this, right? So it's like it's got a lot. It's like it's mixing up some baked goods that I think are going to be super tasty, right? It really is,
but nonstop.
But the chemistry just goes wrong somewhere. Like somebody substituted the
powdered sugar for the flour.
Or the salt and the sugar. Yeah, right. Exactly.
It's no, because the first thing I thought of was, this is A Christmas Carol by way of, we'll say, one of the Bavas. Okay. Maybe not quite Argento, and certainly not Lucio Fulci. But someplace in between, you got either one of the Bavas, and they made the Christmas Carol.
It is kind of Italian. One thing. That's one thing I picked up on this that I wouldn't have forever ago. And that, forget that Carol Baker is in it.
Right.
Right.
Like the clown and the shots.
I saw the clown. I was like, oh, that's why Chuck picked this. It's totally an Italian version of it.
I didn't even remember that. Or I wouldn't have made that connection pre-watching it. During it, I was like, holy shit. Like, this is definitely like Fincher is kind of writing a love note to that stuff a little bit, which you would think would make it endearing to me more, but it doesn't.
Yeah,
this is an elevated B movie that just doesn't quite click all the cylinders, right?
Well, I think some of the things that make it the most Italian, where we would say, it's Italian, and we move on with watching the movie.
Yeah.
In this movie, irritates me.
Yeah, it's auteur David Fincher. It's almost like his CV is now this movie's detriment, right? Because I think for a long time people were like, "Oh yeah, it's the underrated David Fincher movie," but I'm thinking maybe it's the perfectly rated David Fincher movie.
Right. One thing I do want to say before we talk about it, you had asked about my kids. They did not watch it, but I did watch it with the first timer.
Oh, Stephanie never seen this?
Stephanie had never seen it.
Okay.
And it made her really fucking mad.
Yeah.
She was angry at this movie. She was like, "You like this?" I was like, "Yeah, I like it."
At what point was she angry? At the end, or?
I think she was a little bit apprehensive the entire movie, but she's a full movie watcher. Like, she won't give me an opinion anywhere. Like, she won't tell me how she's feeling halfway through a movie. Like, she just won't do it, which is fine. Like, I appreciate that. I get mad when people are like, "That movie sucked. I walked out halfway through." I'm like, well, you don't really know if it sucked then.
Right. You got to get the whole.
You got to get the whole.
Watch the whole thing, then have an opinion. Yeah. I agree.
But the ending really made her mad.
Yeah, it makes me mad too. Susan, interestingly enough, I don't know if she's seen this before. I think she had, and she was kind of into it, but I put it on too late. She had to go to sleep. She was like, "I can't." She's like, "How much time's left?" And I was like, "About 30 minutes." She's like, "Yeah, I don't think I can hang." And so she missed the last act, which
probably good for her.
Probably because I do think she was kind of into it, but not into it enough to like stay up and watch the last 30 minutes. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So that tells you, I guess, a little bit of something.
Yeah. Let me go ahead. I guess since we're already kind of saying this, or we're kind of in this kind of mindset, I will say one of the things that I like the most about it is that there is an experimental idea here, right? Where it's like, we are going to tell you that you're going to be playing a game.
Mm-hmm.
And then we are going to just hit the ground running, and you're going to question every single thing that so you are constantly on edge. Like you're white knuckling it when Michael Douglas should be. And
Right.
you are now heightened. It's like it is pushing your, and so in a way, I kind of like that idea.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I like the idea for a full 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Bring up another movie where I have a similar kind of issue is Skinamarink.
Mm-hmm.
You can only be elevated for so long, and then you start to like wander away.
This
And
at
that's
least has a
exactly where my
little bit.
brain, well, yeah, it's got a plot.
This has a little bit of that like adrenaline, though, right?
Sure.
It tries to keep the thrills going, but you're right. It's like we can only handle so many red herring after red herring, right?
Exactly. And then my brain just wanders away to the point where when things were getting really elevated for the character, I was like, dude, this is all the game. The fuck are you doing? And now I'm starting to get mad at Michael Douglas when I shouldn't be. I should be with him, and I'm getting mad at him instead.
Well, here's an extra element to this that I don't think works. In A Christmas Carol, you have a lot of people around Scrooge who are good, kindly people who are affected by the bad deeds and actions of Ebenezer Scrooge, who, when Ebenezer is redeemed, are the first to embrace him.
Yep.
And there is this heartfelt kind of crescendo to every version of A Christmas Story, right? And in this, I won't get to. I shouldn't talk about the end yet, but that is absent from this movie,
which makes me question what the intent is, and I'm not really sure what the intent is, and that's not always a problem. But in this movie, I feel like I should feel a certain way, and I don't feel any way at the end. But
yeah,
well, it just feels like an amusement ride. It's an amusement park ride.
Yep, I waited in line. I got on the vortex. I went around the vortex. I did the loop-de-loop, and now I'm off. And I'm like, okay, well,
yeah.
Some rides, I'm like,
there were some loops. There was some barrel rolls. Yeah.
That corkscrew was fun. I screamed a lot. That was great. But okay, now I'm ready to go to the Beast or something. And it's like, and so I mean, because I did question throughout the course of the movie multiple times, like maybe 4 specific times, I asked myself, what exactly is the plot of this movie? Is the plot the game itself? Which, if that is the case, that's fine. I also was like, wait a minute, I do think that this is A Christmas Carol. So this is a redeeming moment. I mean, we get everything we need in the, like, right away, because we know that there's a haunting memory of the past that's affecting the man of today. We see a picture of a wife that's no longer there. We know all of these. I mean, we can, when his secretary comes in, there's a distance there, and she's, I get it, but at the same time, it's like, it doesn't really follow that. And then, so then we get into the game, and it's like, okay, well, what's the game about? Well, I know at the end what's going to have to happen. The game is going to get fucked up, and then he's going to be cheerful for life again, or something, whatever, right? And we hear 2 people say this was the greatest thing that ever happened to me in different ways. Okay, but then that is completely and totally left behind in the first act.
Well, and 3 people do say that, and 2 of them are plants.
Yeah.
You assume so, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But anyway, all of that's left in the first act to the point where it's like you forget it, and then the end happens, and it does feel like a rug pull.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm angry at the movie, but it's kind of like, oh, that's cheap.
I think it's a really horrible.
There's a lot of shit that has to happen.
I think it's a really horrible way of confronting trauma. And to be, honestly, if we're not going to talk about the end yet, but I will say that if I were what's his name? Nick Van Orton at the end of this movie, I'd be fucking broken and pissed.
Yeah, let's talk.
I wouldn't be ready to just party.
Yeah, let's talk.
Or ask a girl out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I do think it's worth talking about.
Yeah, it is. It is, absolutely. Yeah. Go right ahead.
So I could probably set this up pretty succinctly, I hope. Nicholas Van Orton, the Scrooge character, has inherited a business and lots of money from his father. He is emotionally distant. He is separated from his wife. He is not talking to his brother because his brother is presumably a drug addict or did something to piss off Nicholas Van Orton. His brother returns on his 48th birthday, which we learn at a point in this movie is the same year his father jumped off their home and landed in the driveway.
Which he witnessed coming home from school.
Yes, he witnessed it coming home from school. That is kind of cool. That's the stuff I like in this movie when he's driving and then they show the past, like he's on the same part of the road witnessing it. So that all the stuff about how this movie is shot and made and shown is pretty great.
Emotional character
really
building
stuff here. Yeah.
It builds a lot of character building without a lot of
no
expositional effort. Yeah.
Well, and then on top of that, also you have creepy late '90s scratchy Super 8 movies, with haunting kind of like piano, really, really toned down score.
Oh yeah.
Kind of listen feels Italian a little bit.
Yeah, and it just it sets a stage where it's like I'm unnerved already. I mean, like right out of the gate with the title, practically, you're unnerved.
Howard Shore, by the way, yeah, it's a very good score. It's extremely effective.
Yes, it is. You said Howard Shore. Yeah, Howard Shore.
I mean, I would expect nothing less from the man who scores everything by David Cronenberg. Like he knows how to get into the psyche of a theme, right?
He crawls under your skin.
Yeah.
So on his 48th birthday, his brother, by way of having a silly name and stuff, tries to make a lunch reservation with his name is Connie. He tries to make a lunch date with Nick, and Nick is he sees through the veil of the name, and he's like, okay, yeah, set a reservation for myself and Mr. Butts at whatever restaurant.
Put it under my name.
And put it under my name.
Put it under my name. Yeah.
Yes. So they do go to lunch, and Conrad hands him a card, and he says, call these folks. And he's like, whatever. What are they? I don't even remember what the particulars are. He's just very not into it. And Connie's like, no, seriously, promise me. He's like, I did promise you. He's like, no, promise me. You didn't promise me. Promise me. He's like, okay, I'll call. And he's like, but I don't like surprises. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right. Then everybody sings happy birthday to him from behind him, and he just kind of takes it. Yes, I want to say just all of this up to this point is I'm into this, right? I'm into this brother relationship. They're not the best of brothers, but they will accept a lunch date with one another. They'll
make time for each other.
They're not completely estranged. They'll make time for each other. There is a genuine
it's all that Nick has anymore.
Yeah.
I mean,
and he's become this person who's completely wrapped up in his work, but at the same time he's Connie is probably the only one who can get him to do something he already has in mind up that he doesn't want to do. Right. So it does give you a
stick in the mud.
It gives you a little bit of humanity for this character that you really, really have to believe in for the rest of the movie, right? You do, because you're stuck with this guy for over 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you are.
And he's not completely and totally unlikable, right?
Right.
I mean,
he's kind of funny. I mean, he's funny at times.
He's droll.
Some of his one-liners I did not like. But I mean, he does not go so far as to be completely and totally detestable.
Right.
You know, it's like he is a perfectly average investment banker. You know, which you might think he's kind of a turd, but
I like my investment banker.
I don't have an investment banker, so I don't like you for having one.
I have an advisor. I don't have a
Oh my
banker.
God. Okay. So I am second-handedly hating all of you.
He's fiduciarily responsible to me.
Jeff's being a fiduciary right now.
Oh, I am being a fidouche.
But yeah, we find out Nick goes home. His ex-wife calls. She's checking on him. You know, we get the sense he's lonely, obviously. He doesn't want to talk to her. She's having a baby, and he's like, oh, great, whatever. Very cool, right? But then the next day, this is where things get going. And where I think, how do I say this? The movie kind of goes off the rails, right? And Jeff, I'm kind of surprised that your mind was wandering if you hadn't seen this before. But if you have the end in mind, the rest of the stuff is like, I don't have to watch this. I can just think about the end of the movie because I know what's fucking happening. So none of this matters, kind of.
Yeah.
But the long day of testing is just fantastic. He like wanders in.
I do like that. Yeah.
He wanders into the office accidentally, right? Is it CRS? Is it what
CRS.
CRS,
Yeah.
and they just happen to be on the
Consumer
14th
Recreation
floor
Services.
of the building that he works in.
Yes, and somehow he sees that and he walks in with the card and it's funny if you're paying attention, I don't know if you caught it, the lady's like, hey, your application wasn't accepted to someone that's on the phone,
Right.
which eventually gets repeated back to him later. And you're like, oh, that's part of the game probably.
It's a great James Rebhorn.
Oh God, Rebhorn's fantastic in this. There's one point.
I mean, what isn't he fantastic in? Yeah.
That I was dying. So I do like also, this is the one time he is absolutely not in, it's the one time we've seen up to this point where he is not the man that everybody's looking at. He walks in, he says, I've got this car, and the woman shuts him up. And it's like, and then Rebhorn comes over and takes him, and then it's like, here, hold my Chinese food. You know, dropping a hint for later.
Yeah, whatever the name of the place is, I can't remember.
Something cafe. He's like, it's the best place in Chinatown.
It's
it looked good. I wanted those noodles real bad.
I still have like such a big problem with that. It's like everything has to go just right in this movie.
Well, that
drives me crazy. It drives me crazy.
That's a whole other thing. I don't think that the Chinese food thing is 100% a purposeful drop. But you don't know. That's kind of part of the problem. Because
it's kind of the fun and it's kind of the part of the problem. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because if everything we see is part of the game, holy shit, there's some major jumps that you have to take.
Well, that's the thing. The first time you watch this movie, you can't have a lot of fun with it because it just kind of goes, right? It just goes and you just accept things as they happen. But watching it again with the end in mind, it's just kind of frustrating. It's frustrating watch.
You know what this movie ain't? The Usual Suspects.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. Well, yeah. We mentioned Chuck mentioned that from the top.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. I don't want to diss on every little thing, but
hating on the game.
I'm trying to give credit where credit is due as well.
Well,
so some of the foreshadowing drops, I don't think are as clever as they think they are. Right.
I think the way I take it, the way I choose to deal with that aspect is that if that drop didn't work, they would have guided him another way.
They had a backup.
Right. But again, at the other point of the conversation is how can they be omnipotent, right? Like, yes, they're doing all these tests. Yes, they know a psychological profile, but they can't know everything.
No,
I mean they dumped the man in Mexico and they just expect him to make it back.
On $18. Yeah. And which is about $4 billion in pesos. So he's probably doing pretty good.
They do have a plant in the U.S. Embassy there. Like these people are far-reaching.
Yeah, I mean,
we'll talk about the bill at the end of the episode.
Oh my God, the bill!
Because give me a fucking break.
That was the one line that I cracked up which is, can I help with the bill?
It's self-aware, at least.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But like, I do think that there are many, many, many Deborah Kara Ungers that is going to pick up the slack to say, hey, by the way, he's off path. Oh, somebody comes over and moves
You know what
him
I would like to see? I would like to see a movie like this where they have several of these going at once.
And they
and they
interact.
and they interact.
Yeah.
So there's a movie. All right, Chuck. I've waited several years to tell you about why you should watch Special Actors, which was the movie, the follow-up movie by the director of One Cut of the Dead.
Oh, yeah.
But it's the game. And it's fucking brilliant.
Yeah, but
It's
isn't
like-
One Cut of the Dead also the game and also kind of works in like
No.
Well, I mean-
One Cut of the Dead is like they purposefully try to shoot a movie in one take. This Special Actors is... The special actor alludes to the fact that you are an actor hired to take a role in a game-like experience like this, right? And it's brilliant. Like, it was honestly, like, they took this concept and made it a comedy, and it is absolute genius.
All right, I'll watch that.
So you should watch it. Anyway, I totally forgot about that until right now, that there is actually kind of a really genius version of this movie. And it's called Special Actors, and I don't know where you can find it, but I think it's in our Vimeo account.
Sweet.
Yeah. All right, sorry.
No, that's all right. I still have like 3 pages of notes for this fucking movie. But really, at this point, like, he takes the test. He gets a call that he wasn't accepted. Right, just like the act. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, real quick. One of the parts of the test was the word associate, like picture word association, and some of his responses to that was pretty funny.
Whoops.
Like, whoops was the good one where the guy's driving off a
Driving
cliff.
up the cliff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then he corrects the dude on a word, and your buddy's like, "That's right, you're a left-brained word fetishist."
Yeah,
which is pretty funny.
Well, which all of those. A lot of those pictures are also hints too, because at one point he does get he gets driven off a dock, which is
I think everything in the pictures happens in the game.
Well, the woman who he calls dangerous or risky, which I think is supposed to be the Christine character later.
Yes.
Yeah.
The snake this is snake in the grass. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, here's an interesting thing that I thought of seeing this movie, because there are some really neat clues in this first 1 and 2 acts. The fact that what's his name again? James Rebhorn, he mentions Connie and said Connie was a client of theirs in London.
Yeah.
And that they do some informal scoring, and his score was really good.
Yes.
Right? That's really important, because if he doesn't say that, I 100% guarantee you that he ain't sitting through all these tests.
Yeah, he wants to beat his brother.
He wants to beat his brother. Yeah.
Good point. But man, if these people are malicious, because the first thing they do to him in the game, is put someone in his driveway looking like they jumped off his house and is dead, just like his dad was. And I'm like, holy shit, these people are ruthless. Thankfully, it turns out to be a creepy Italian clown with a camera in its eye. And I don't know how
that itself, I ain't bringing that shit into my place.
I don't know why he does it.
It's like, Carol Baker, go out there. You've got experience with this Italian shit. You go out there and you throw that shit in the dumpster.
Ilsa, you take care of this.
Yeah, I'll give you a raise. Which, by the way, their relationship grows throughout the course of the movie, too, which is interesting because he is she's the servant. You know, the early part, it seems very short and curt and move on. And later on, he's like asking
cares about her.
Yeah, and he's like asking family stuff. And then when he thinks that the place has been broken into, the first person he calls her. And it's like, you got to stay locked in the servants' quarters or whatever. So
stay the fuck in here, Ilsa, and lock the door.
Yep. And so their relationship evolves throughout the course of the movie too, which makes him likable, even when he's being driven utterly insane.
Well, it's showing that the experience is working, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Right? Like the fact that he's opening up to people, the fact that he is protective of Ilsa, all things we would have been like, no way in the beginning of the movie, right?
You almost expect that from Connie, not from Nikki.
Right. And we don't know a whole lot about Connie, and we never really learn a whole lot about Connie.
We just know that he's a lot less stick up his ass and loose, you know.
Yes, we know he has high scores on his test. If that's if that's untrue or true, we don't know really. But the clown had a key in its mouth. The thing they do with the news, I don't know how they do it, but it's so cool. Like the news anchor starts dropping his name.
That's the real news anchor of that station in the Bay Area.
San Francisco? Yeah,
I believe it is. Yeah.
But they send him the rules by way of the news, and he's like, copy this number. If there's an emergency, call it. But don't call it to find out what the game is about, because what the game is about is the objective of the game. Mm-hmm. Right? Something like that. Yeah. And then they're like, I don't even know how you talk about this. Like, there is a series of events, right? One thing after another. His pen bleeds into his shirt, which forces him into the bathroom, which there's a guy asking him for toilet paper. And I assume the guy asking for toilet paper was someone that would have goaded him a certain way.
Yeah, that's kind of like your thing where, they have to have multiple situations set up. Yeah.
The first thing, next stop.
The first thing you see is the baby's rattle looks
with
like
the clown face.
Looks like a clown, which I think because he's told that there will be 3 places that he would use the key, I think, and it will become evident to him when he needs
something like that. Yeah.
Because at first I thought they said there would be 3 keys, and he thought there would be, but it's 3 places that he uses a key.
Well, he does get at least 2 keys. One of them is just not a normal key.
One's a hotel
is the
key.
No, the other one is the window.
Is roller. The guy that points out the pen the guy at the end?
Yes.
I thought so. Yeah.
Yep. He's the guy who's handing the bill.
Yeah.
So that's really the game. The game is now begun.
The game is afoot.
The game is afoot. Even though he's told he'd been rejected.
Yes.
Right.
So they're already the movie's trying to keep you off kilter.
Yes.
The game is trying to keep him off kilter.
Yes. And
he's not sure, am I playing the game? Or it's kind of planting the seed of doubt, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But it's so kind of breakneck. If you don't know what happens, you are kind of just along for the ride, right? It's just going to barrel roll you, shoot you off the Niagara Falls, and hopefully you survive when you hit the water.
I don't like how I don't know that I want to jump right to it, but Deborah Kara Unger is in this, and she's pretty. I've always liked Deborah Kara Unger. And there's a whole thing with her and his club that he goes to, and she spills a drink on him. And then he gets a note left on his table after the whole hubbub of that to go after the girl because she gets sacked from her job and she's leaving. And he's supposed to chase after her.
Don't let the girl get away.
And then he just blindly follows her into one dumb situation after another, which really bugs me.
Yeah, I was a little, yeah.
It doesn't bug me because at this point the game hasn't really done anything. He knows it's the game.
Yeah. He's about to jump in trash though. I don't know.
It's the game, and he's been told he's
climbing out of an elevator. I don't know. When he's right, when they trip the alarm, and he doesn't know she's part of it. He doesn't even suspect her. When they trip the alarm at CRS, I'd be like, yeah, we should just wait and explain ourselves. And she just is like, no, we gotta run. And he's like, okay, and they do, and it's kind of
he's probably following her because at one point in time she's like, I'm not wearing underwear. So I can't go further, which of course was only to get him to do what's I think supposed to happen.
This is also why special actors is funny, is because they have to figure out how to fucking like divert situations that don't go the way they want them to. And it's funny. It's like, that's kind of like watching this movie. I'm just like, I know that she's part of this, and he's just following her, and he's like her lemming. And is he smart or is he not, or is he trying to enjoy the game? I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't think it matters. Like, if he thinks she's part of the game, then he should follow her because he's been signed up for this game.
Yeah,
right.
But he doesn't. He still doesn't even know. Like an hour later, he's like on the fence about it.
True, but the game did tell him don't let her get away. So even if she wasn't part of the game did tell her.
So he's got it. He's the white. Well, there's a lot of White Rabbit in this movie, so she's the White Rabbit. Yeah.
Yes. Go ask Alice. I think she'll know.
It's fair enough. It's fair enough.
Real quick, there's a name in the cast who has a really, really small part that is kind of surprising.
Spike Jonze?
No.
I did
notice
Spike
him?
Jonze.
Yeah, Spike
EMT
Jonze,
guy at the end. Yeah.
Yeah, he is in that. But no, her roommate in the scene later when he goes and tracks her down is Linda Mans.
She looked familiar.
She was the little girl in Days of Heaven.
Oh, interesting.
And she was, by this point in the 90s, was starting to build like a kind of a cult following in terms of like the movies and stuff that she'd been in, because she was never really in anything like she wasn't like a big time, actress. But
well, yeah, she was. I just recently watched Out of the Blue. She was the adolescent girl in that. Dennis Hopper directed that. It's a good movie. And she was in Gummo. Yeah,
I think that was the movie that got her the
same year as this.
Yeah,
she was in Gummo.
Following. But
yeah,
no,
Harmony Korine. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like she was kind of somebody, mostly just because of her first movie, because of Terrence Malick.
Yeah.
And she narrates pretty much that whole movie.
Well, there is no doubt in my mind that Fincher, I think he likes to play with that, with casting a little bit. And he definitely does that in this movie. Especially, I mean, Carol Baker, what the hell had she been doing when this movie came out?
Kindergarten Cop.
Yeah, she was in Kindergarten Cop. But that was 7 years
that
before.
Came out. Was it 7 years before?
Yeah, it was 7 years before. But she was a bad guy in that, yeah.
Yeah, she was.
To which I think Ebert said something to the effect of her being like kind of was able to play the perfect bitch for that or something.
Damn.
Yeah, because like she was so mean in Kindergarten Cop.
Carol Baker, I'm sorry, but she is a great actress. I mean, man.
She makes those Giallo films. We've talked about one of them, The Knife of Ice. Yeah, Knife of Ice. She's fucking wonderful in that movie. But everything I've seen her in, she's really good in.
She is.
Coming up at the end of this very month, June, on B-Movie Enema of the Series, The Fourth Victim.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah, me too. Italian royalty, Italian film royalty, right?
Absolutely.
There for genre film. I don't want to get into it, Jason. I'm sorry.
No, you can get into it as much as you want. Okay. Italian genre, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to say like Italian film and piss you off. Well, I'm joking.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
It'd almost be like, this is a great example of an American film, It's like, well, let's get a little bit more specific.
Yeah, that's why I did it, just for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of shit that happens with her ending in him with the joke, "Where's your modesty against attack dogs?" when she goes first up the thing. And basically we find out that she was paid $400. This is what Nicholas knows.
Yeah.
She was paid $400 to spill a drink on him. And she was like, spill a drink on that handsome man?
Yeah.
Totally.
She gives him a little bit of like the tease bait. Yeah, yes, for sure.
Totally baiting him.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next day he gets a call from his secretary saying, hey, they found your card at the Nico Hotel. And this is when things kind of spiral like for him
agree.
and the movie.
And the movie, yeah.
Yes. Yes. And I don't know if that, obviously Fincher wouldn't want to make the movie spiral, but it feels congruent with what would be happening to Nicholas at the time, if that makes sense. Because he goes to the hotel, he gets a card, he goes into the room. There's blow everywhere, pictures of him, illicit photos of him, which what the fuck does that even matter? Really,
well, it's hard to even tell if it's him, though, right? Because we don't ever get a good look at the photos.
His lawyer says it looks a lot like him.
Looks a lot like him, yes. But, you know, the photos we see, his head's tilted back. His head is tilted back, you know, and it's like, we don't really get a good look. Yeah.
Right. I think that's a good thing, really, that we don't get to see that it's his face, because that would change.
It's close enough to where he feels like he's in danger.
Well, yes. his card is rented the room, or his card is rented. It's his American Express, so that's enough for him to be. Because if he supposed to be a fiduciary, he's going to be like, "No, I am not. You can't just let that spiral like that, right?" You know, so it's like if he's going.
Well, that's also like the thing we haven't talked about is he's in the middle of having to terminate the leadership position of one of his father's old friends who started at a publishing company that he is the majority owner, and I think that's the whole deal.
Yeah,
it's the.
I think his name is Anson Bear.
Yeah, it's the Miller-Stahl.
Incomparable Armin Mueller-Stahl. Yeah, So he is very aware of the perception of the stockholders, and he's like, "This is what we have to do. You have to go, and the stock will recover." Right. And we made a decisive action. So he's like, in his mind, he's like, "I'm going to be the decisive action." Right. Yeah.
Yes, and then he believes that Anson Bear did this to him, so he shows up.
That too.
He shows up at the hotel he's in with his.
Oh my god! This kind of cracked me up.
You talk about it then.
Yeah, so he comes busting in to this hotel room where the old man is having breakfast with his wife and his daughter, and he's like, "Look here, motherfucker," and he's just like laying into him. It's like you can have 100 pictures of me fucking somebody in the butt or something like that.
He's like, you could have me getting fucked in the ass by Captain Kangaroo.
Kangaroo. Yeah, it's like I don't fucking care, and it's like you lost my money, and how dare you? Blah 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 blah. All the while, the daughter's like, "Daddy, what's going on?" And the wife is just sitting there like stone faced.
Never says a word.
Never says a word. The Anson Bear is kind of stone faced, and then because the lawyer's like shocked by the action, and he's like, "Hey," and he's like, "No, I already met with your lawyer before you even got here. I signed your offer. Actually, I don't want to work anymore. This is great. I love what it's like you have made my life better for no longer having to work for you." And he's like, and I have nothing to do with all of this. And he gets that. And he's like, then I am sorry.
He says, "I am sorry for the misguided," and then it just trails off and couples out of the room.
Well, before then, he's like, "Would you like to join us for breakfast?"
Yeah.
See, that stuff is good. I like that.
And that's when his lawyer. Great. That's when his lawyer is like, "And so, how much should I have to worry about you?"
Yeah. So, real quick, am I the only one here who believes his lawyer is not part of the game?
He's not. He's not in on it.
Can't be. Yeah. Okay.
I question.
He even says it at the end. I don't know what this is, but
yeah, I don't know what this is, but that was
Anson Bear is not in on it. Yeah. He's not in on. Lawyer's not in it. His ex-wife isn't in on it.
This shit could be extremely, extremely dangerous.
I mean, yes. I want to know if James Rebhorn's fucking kids are in on it. You know,
I know.
It's
right?
Because it's like there's some serious child endangerment shit happening towards the end of this movie. Yeah.
Yes, there is.
Yeah,
but the gun he has isn't really real.
Right, but it could have been.
Yeah,
it could have been
pretty dangerous.
I mean, it's a damn
for that.
It's a damn good thing that Connie I have to assume it was Connie, said there's a gun in To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah, of course.
You have to change that. I mean, that is, ooh,
I know. But that's playing with a lot of fire.
it
right?
is. I mean, there's
Playing
a
with a lot of
lot
fire.
of fire going on in this.
I mean, there is some shit that happens in this movie where like civilians are put at risk, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, like, imagine if he doesn't get that window handle. He's dead in the East River. Or
what
what
about-
it was, it was the Bay. But
What
it
about
looked like
when
New
his
York.
tire blows out? Well, he could just fucking run somebody over easily. You know? Like when they run his car, even before he's in the water, when they run the car off the water, there was somebody who that guy almost hit.
Yeah.
Who was like, "What the hell's wrong with you, man?" Yeah. Like there were legitimately people put in danger in this movie for this
You have to
game.
assume most of the people who are the actors in the game are like stunt guys, right? Because like that guy would have had to have known exactly how to drive around somebody who's just an innocent bystander.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had this weird vision in my brain.
Unless the bystanders are also hired.
So I had this weird vision in my brain of where they showed you. I want to wait for Chuck to get back for this.
Okay. Yeah, here he's right here.
Chuck, we're talking about all the innocent people who are not part of the game who were put in danger during the course of the game.
Yeah,
Especially during like all the car stuff, right? And I had this weird vision in my brain of them showing all those moments at the end in flashbacks when they were explaining it. I'm putting that in air quotes because this doesn't happen. Like that he was never in any real danger. Like I'm imagining that there was a scene with scuba divers around the car when it went into the river.
Right.
I wasn't in the river; it was the bay, right? The San Francisco Bay, and but that never happened.
She does say that.
Does she say that?
She says there were divers in the water.
Okay, all right. So that's why it's implanted in my memory. Okay.
Yes. And we're
Okay.
not there yet, but this is when she's trying to talk him out. Yeah.
But all right, fair enough. And Jeff was just saying that all these drivers had to be stunt drivers, but I was like, well, when they blow the tire out on that car,
With
Michael
the
Douglas
investigator?
isn't a stunt driver, you know?
Oh yeah, when he's driving. Well, that's his car.
And then there's some stuff, like when he fires the gun at the
Investigator's
tire. I was like, well, first of all, so they were just positively sure he was going to fire the gun, or they just like prepared for anything, right? But what if he fired the gun in the air and they blew the tire? It's just goofy stuff.
They tested him for 8 hours.
I know.
They knew
It's
where he was gonna shoot.
just goofy stuff. I've been in therapy for years and they can't figure this shit out.
They know where you're going to shoot a gun, though.
Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just like this movie is like suspension of disbelief to the nth degree.
Absolutely. That's why I think it's a good one-time watch. If you think about it too much, you're like,
right.
What the fuck, man?
100% correct.
Well,
Yep.
and that's
you
why
gotta go
I
with the
say-
roller coaster ride, but if you've been on it a bunch, you're kind of over it at the end of the day.
Yes.
And that's why I kind
unfortunately-
of said it's a little bit, it's very Italian in that way too, right? Where it's like there's the leaps of, like, Chuck, you had an issue with the end of Deep Red when the guy ran into the bus. I'm like, dude, the truck. It's like, dude, it's an Italian movie.
Yeah, but that movie, like, honestly, that movie is so fucking good.
No, wait. How do you explain the little puppet guy?
I love the little puppet guy.
The little puppet guy then must be a living thing himself.
Puppet guy.
The little
Wait,
puppet-
why?
Because
What?
How does he get wound up and then sent out of a closet all by himself?
He didn't. The killer was in there.
Yeah, the killer
He
did that.
wasn't in the closet. He was in the other room.
No, Okay,
He had it
there's
set
two
up,
doors
maybe.
going into that room. The killer wound up the doll and sent it in one door and then went around the other side and snuck up behind him. But we don't need to talk about Deep Red right now. That is a good
Well,
movie.
maybe
We've spent quite a long time talking about that movie, so go listen to that.
Yeah, you've
episode.
done it twice. This will be the third time.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the third time we've talked
Yeah.
about a movie like Deep Red because we're talking about the game.
We must
Which has
actually
got a
like
creepy
Deep
clown.
Red quite a bit because it is, yeah.
I fucking love that movie. Like, it's one
Well,
of my
I do
favorites
too. I'm just
ever.
saying, it's like you can't pick and choose when to get mad at the leaps of judgment in Italian movies, but
That
you
one didn't
can
have
in
a.
Pastiche.
I'm just gonna say, and please don't argue back, that movie didn't have a lot of that until the
enough.
very end.
Fair
I
enough.
agree.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I agree. I agree with that. Everything goes from point A to point B for a long
Yes.
time in that movie. Yes.
Yes. Where
But
the
then
fuck
again,
even?
so does the game.
Well, yeah, but
because
but
the
the lines are
point
very
A to C to D.
meticulously drawn. Yeah.
right. Yeah.
It's like the
Yes.
lines of fate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little different when you're trying to control a person to do exactly what you intend them to do. That's like just a difficult thing. And then if you don't believe it can be done, it makes this narrative fall apart, right? Like it just does. Anyway, Nick arrives home. Go ask Alice. Somebody's painted his walls all up and down with fluorescent lights. This is when he goes and tells Elsa, like, stay in the house. And someone wrote on the wall or somewhere, or I don't know where this is written, but it said, like my father before me, I choose eternal rest. Which I'm like, the second time, I'm like, these people are fucking ruthless.
Yeah, that wasn't even on the walls. It was like a personal message. I forget where, but yeah, it was typed out.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was on a note or something. Mm-hmm. Yes. And I'm like, Jesus, these people are mean. Like, they're driving this man to insanity.
Mm-hmm.
And this, I think, is when he brings in the cops.
Yeah.
Which maybe they're in or not in on.
Well, no, the detectives are most definitely in on it because they're sitting at a table.
They show up at the table later. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
In which scene are they at the party or are they at a table?
It's honestly my
CRS.
favorite. It's my favorite moment in the scene or in the movie. Honestly, like if this movie had a better. If it had been better, it had a better third act, this scene could have actually slayed. And it's, when he walks into the break room. The break room.
It's so great because they're all just like all, fucking around like you would in the break room at a job. It's like
that scene kills. It really does. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, but then because there is also still a little bit of room to think,
sure,
these are bad guys. This is a ring of some sort. It's like,
so we should probably set that up quickly, right? Conrad shows up at this point, and Conrad's like, the CRS people won't let me fucking go. They're fucking with me. They're trying to get money from me.
They're extorting.
Now they're extorting me. Now they're extorting you. And then Conrad, like, they get in a car and they're driving. I don't know where the fuck they're going. And Conrad, the tire blows, as Jason mentioned earlier, while they're fucking flying around away from somebody. I don't know what the hell they're doing. And he opens the glove compartment, Conrad does, while Nikki's going to fix the tire, and a bunch of keys fall out. And he's like, oh, you're a fucking part of that. You're a part of this thing. You've done it from the beginning. And Nick's like, what the fuck are you talking about? How could you brought this to me?
Yeah.
They're yelling at each other in the street, and Nick chases after Connie. Then a phone rings and he picks up the phone, and it's a recording of their yelling at each other. And you're like, okay, I can, and I think I did at the time. And I'm interested in your thought here, Jeff. Like, this is when I think the movie was like my first time watching, like, maybe this isn't a game. Maybe he is being extorted. Like, did you ever get that feeling, or were you always like, it's just a fucking game?
I think it's definitely supposed to emphasize that idea.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly, let's put it this way. I thought, this is probably just the game. But if it was revealed later that it really was a whole extortion thing, because this is when this is all really cranked up. Because shortly after this is when he finds out from Deborah Kara Unger that, hey, we got everything. They took everything from you. And then he tries to call his lawyer, and then, but anyway, it's all, this is, so like, I thought game only because if because with the subsequent scenes where they were like, oh, this is a whole thing. And while, yes, I know that, all of these types of schemes are more complicated than they seem on the surface. At the same time, I thought, you're asking a lot of me to think that this is all
An
just
extortion ring.
all to just get to an extortion ring. Because it's like, at some point, the extortion ring is going to run out of money paying all the people who are a part of this.
Yeah.
And that's
That's why I thought this has to be still the game.
And that's a major problem with this movie. That's why a second watch doesn't work. And a first watch, if you always think it's the game, there are no stakes. There are zero stakes.
Until the very, very end, which then is still a rug pull.
Oh God! But even the stuff with this moment with Sean Penn, his brother, it's so like, why would you believe he was involved? Like, what does he have to gain from his house being vandalized? Like, it's very much like this contrived moment where it's clear his brother is in on the ploy. It's at that point where I'm more like, is his brother trying to fleece him? Is he part of the conspiracy, right?
Well, there are movies that did this kind of stuff, like The Sixth Sense told you what was happening.
I know,
in this way, with things that didn't make sense, that you're like, there's no way this would really happen this way. But you still believe it.
But it replays.
But you still believe it, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and you still believe it. So I think Fincher's trying to do that with you here, and he just doesn't succeed.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to mention The Sixth Sense because I thought of The Sixth Sense while I was watching this movie as an example of a movie that absolutely works on every single rewatch.
Yep.
Like, that movie just works. It's like a perfectly made watch. It ticks every second off exactly the way it should, and it's like almost a marvel to watch every time because it is a perfect movie. It's perfect.
Right, because you will allow yourself to believe what's happening every time you watch it. It's kind of why I like The Sixth Sense. Like, I know or not The Sixth Sense. That's kind of why I like The Usual Suspects. I know it's coming, but I'm able to believe the story as it's being told to me.
But all the tumblers are in the right place.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's something to be said about that. The meticulousness of the storytelling is a marvel in itself. I mean, it is, and if you watch it knowing what's coming next and knowing the beats and knowing, what you know about the characters, it all still works, right?
Absolutely.
And there's emotion. There's a different level of emotion in it, knowing what you know. That is hard to do. Like, really hard to do.
And this movie fails us because we aren't invested in Nick at any time. So we can't even feel these downs with him at all.
Right.
Like we could with Bruce Willis or Gabriel Byrne in Usual Suspects or any of that stuff. Like, we can't feel that.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, with this movie, we're mildly invested in Michael Douglas and more so because it's Michael Douglas. Right? Like,
he's pretty good in this movie.
He is good in this.
He's good.
I mean, and he is. I mean,
he's one of the rangiest actors that ever acted. I mean, he's very good.
He is all over that range in this movie when he should be, and it's appropriate. And it's, Michael Douglas is not. I mean, he and his dad are two guys that you are very rarely disappointed after watching them in a movie.
I wonder, and I agree with you. I wonder if, because Michael Douglas, we all knew him when this movie came out. He had been in Romancing the Stone. He'd been in all this kind of shit that we liked, that we just like the man, Michael Douglas, right? It's been 26 years since this came out, right?
27, yeah.
26 years, 27. I'm not that familiar with Michael anymore. I think some casting is made on your preconceived feelings about an actor.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, we would have gone into this going, I like Michael Douglas. I'm going to root for Michael Douglas. But this time I'm like, I don't.
That is fair. That is fair. Like he's already been the target of several thrillers, like Fatal Attraction. He was the target. A Basic Instinct. He was the target. Falling Down is a little bit of Falling Down in this, where he's the put upon
when he's walking down the road in the middle of the road. I'm like, oh, that's falling
in
down.
Mexico. In Mexico, especially, yeah. Disclosure is another one, like the put upon, white guy.
Yeah,
who's going to come out of it with grace.
Yeah, and that's why I said that. It's like
like me.
Yeah, just like me. Yeah,
that's a good point, though. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, it is a good point because, like I said, it's like I'm mildly invested in Michael Douglas, not so much Nick Van Orton, and because I'm also immediately seeing that he's Scrooge. And it's like it's starting to kind of jumble things up a little bit too much.
Mm-hmm. I bet you 26 years ago that would have been different, though. I really do. Like if you watched it in 1997, you would have been a little bit more just invested in the character.
Maybe, but I had a much less mature brain too.
Yeah,
right. We were easily manipulated children back then.
I mean, I was like a movie nut. Watched everything. I didn't watch anything with a critical eye. When I was, when I saw this, I was 18 years old. Yeah.
Right. And it's our, our job. I'm saying our job. It's not our job. Nobody's paying us to do this. But it's our job.
Our listeners demand it.
Yes. Our listeners paid us $1 million. But anyway, no, I mean, like when I was 20, when this came out, like you, Chuck, I would have been like, yeah, I'm following the waitress. She doesn't wear underwear. So it's like, but like at the same time, the investment is, it's not like there is such a sadness in the Bruce Willis going back to The Sixth Sense that you're just like, what? There's something about this character that I feel for him.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Bruce Willis is like, I have empathy for that man. Every time I see him, even before his current, I don't care who he's playing.
Bruce Willis against type is one of the best.
Oh, it's the best thing ever. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's then on top of that, when you talk about The Usual Suspects, there's a whole cast of characters that are all bringing different things to it, and it's like you forget about Kevin Spacey.
Have we not done The Usual Suspects?
I know.
Have we not done it?
I know.
When is our next
milestone? Let's do it right now.
We should do it for our next milestone.
We should.
I mean, I've said forever it's my favorite movie of all time, and I still think it is, so we should definitely cover it. Let's kind of wrap this up, I guess.
Yeah, so, okay,
all right.
So basically, we've been kind of on the wild goose chase, right? Where it's like it goes from, Michael Douglas being, like they set up the whole thing with the hotel room with all the Polaroids and everything. They then he's then told that everything is gone from his bank accounts, to which he tells Christine, it's like, that's not just my money. You're talking about other people's money.
I love that.
He's also said, you're right.
I love that moment in the script. Like, that's a really well pointed written moment,
and
right?
Payroll and pension, man.
Yeah.
And it gives weight to the plight, right? Because now if you're not with him, you're with those
everybody
people.
Else.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The 99% is fucked by this too.
It's a smart, like, 2-line moment in the script. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's I mean, like it adds something more to like him.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have a whole lot to like about it, at least he's sitting there saying, I have to watch over other people.
There are people he takes care of. Yep.
His heart is growing because it's a,
and
it's
he's
a
not,
moment
and at
for
that
him.
moment, he's not necessarily just thinking about himself.
Right.
Even if it's manipulative, which it might be, it's at least in his mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's there. Yeah. Because later, now he's, because then she drugs him, because then he does get it. He calls his lawyer and it's like, hey man, it's all gone. This is some serious shit. This is what's going on. The lawyer calls back and says, no, it's there. What are you talking about? Let me know where you're at. To which,
meanwhile, he'd been on the phone giving the password to every single bank he had.
Yeah.
Right, asking them, where checking the bank accounts, and unbeknownst to him, now he thinks he gave the password to every account.
Yeah,
right.
But this is really smart work by Deborah Kara Unger as Christine, where she's like, hey, he's in on it. He says the money's there. He's fucking in on it.
This is the Mamet shit in this movie. This is that David Mamet couldn't have written that stuff better. Yeah. Yeah,
because she thinks
total House of Games stuff right there.
Yeah, and she's like, "Oh, no, yeah, he's your lawyer. He's part of us too, man." It's like,
not part of us. He's still at that point. She is saying she's not part of it.
Well, not anymore, at least. She was hired for a thing. She did her thing. Now she's not part of it.
And then she's saying he's in on it, but then he starts to get woozy from the coffee that she gave him.
Yeah,
the coffee being drugged, and now he's like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah, and so she, so then he wakes up in a coffin in Mexico.
Yes,
yeah. He gets to
in a coffin in Mexico.
So he eventually gets to the consulate, and it's like. The guy's like, hey, somebody like you doesn't normally have, issues with the passport or whatever.
No, he's like, you got mugged, but you have that watch. They didn't take that watch. This is important. It's supposed to be.
It's almost like
it's symbolic.
It's kind of like also like I was sitting there thinking, it's like, oh, this guy's trying to grease the wheels a little bit here,
Well, yeah. I mean, he is. He's trying to get him to sell the watch to get home. Yeah. But the important part of this scene, and it kind of falls flat a little bit, is that this was his dad's watch that he was given by his mother on his 18th birthday, and he's willing to sell it to get home. It's symbolic, right, of him
letting his father go.
It's just not it just doesn't land.
Yeah, it doesn't.
There's not enough reminder of that, because to be honest with you, I didn't realize that until you told me.
I mean, there's an inscription that's hard to read. It's hard to read.
It says, your father's watch on your 18th birthday, - mom.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
it
does remind you there, but it's not impactful at all.
Yeah.
Maybe in my first watch, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, also, I think a part of the problem is the scene earlier with Carol Baker, Ilsa, the housekeeper.
Yeah.
Where they talk about him, and she checks in on him, and he's like, I don't really remember my dad. His dad is almost like a specter in his life, a specter of the suicide of his father is a specter in his life. Yeah, so it's hard to. We know that he is haunted by that, but it never really feels resonant in the narrative, if that makes sense.
No, I mean, they didn't, we do this sometimes. If I were gonna go back and do this movie, I would have shown the kid devastated.
Yeah.
Devastated by the loss of his father.
I agree.
And then have a reminder of that later in the movie, when they're talking about his 48th birthday coming. Because this is the ghost they're trying to expel, right?
Yeah.
Theoretically. And I don't even know. I don't even know what they're trying to do.
It could just be a youngish Fincher trying to be
but
they don't need it spelled out for them, though. I mean,
yeah. But 7 was so fucking good.
Well, maybe.
But this is a different type of nuance that is required here. You know?
Yeah, maybe what we needed was young Michael Douglas falling into a cave and seeing a bunch of bats and deciding this is how I'm going to deal with my father's death. Mm-hmm. You know?
Maybe he should have been the head of the game all along. Maybe he should have been the head of the game all along, and they didn't know he was the head of the game, and he hired them all to be his therapy, not knowing that he was their boss. Boom.
And they're Batman.
Yes.
Boom.
And he's like, why do we fall, Nicholas? So we can get back up.
And then he does his performance reviews at the end of the movie.
And then, the first 30 minutes the last 90 minutes is him doing the performance.
When he jumps off the roof, he spreads the bat wings.
Yeah. He takes off. You're all getting raises.
I don't know what's happening here.
I don't either, but that's pretty funny. I think I like it a lot, actually.
Anyway, I'm just thinking of rich dads who die early when their kids are still, haunted by them. Anyway.
But we agree that the emotional
weight
weight doesn't quite hit right.
Right.
Yeah.
So he does go home after being buried alive. He has this planes, trains, and automobiles adventure and trucks and cars and whatever
and
it is.
It is like a lot. They're putting a lot to faith here. Like, I actually kind of wish that they had explained a plan. Maybe it is. Maybe the truck driver of the Baskin Robbins truck was at the party, and that's an Easter egg that I didn't see.
I just assumed that the driver was in on it.
I think that was just product placement, not character.
Yeah,
placement.
well, I mean, but it's like, man, I have to assume that they were going to put plans in motion to get him home. Like, they were going to make it feel like it was his adventure, but they're going to get him home from Mexico. But it feels, but the audience can't feel like that's happening because it takes away from the reveal of the ending. So it just all ends up a little bit like
it's a little
like
goofy,
crisscross
right?
applesauce. Yeah, a little loosey goosey.
It just comes across as like Nicky has to end up becoming not very smart, right? Like, if he is truly as kind of cynical and as kind of shrewd as we think he is, like he kind of ends up spinning out of control pretty quickly.
He shut off everything in his life that would have given him emotion. So emotion is going to make him go off the rails, right? Like, if you cut off everybody in your life that might impact your emotion, which is what he's done, I think a little bit of emotion might make you be erratic. It's not really explored here.
Yeah.
Well, that's the problem.
I can buy it.
I can buy what you're saying. It's just, it's just not there in the.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if it's implied, it's not implied well enough.
No, it's not. But he goes home. His house is up for auction.
That's fast, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
I'm sure he'd be paid up pretty quickly. But he's like, fuck that shit. I'm breaking in. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm breaking in. He goes and steals your boy, whose name James Rebhorn, and he's like, we're going to CRS, and he
gets a book. He gets the To Kill a Mockingbird. Which I looked at Susan. I was like, that must have been a large print edition.
Yeah, because that is a thick version of it.
Yes.
Yeah,
that must have had a sermon so long in it.
Yeah,
or like a soliloquy.
I don't think you could put like To Kill a Mockingbird and Go Set a Watchman together, and it would be that thick. Yeah,
right.
No.
But whatever.
No. And so he does go and talk to his wife, and he's like, I understand why you left me. Oh, by the way, can I borrow your car? I got something I got to go do, which he figures out from a TV commercial that James Rebhorn is just an actor.
Yeah.
So he's like, he's just a fucking actor. Yeah. And so he starts to track down, like, this is the Chinatown place, which he probably wouldn't have remembered because we don't remember the name of the Chinatown.
Well, how would he remember? How would he even know he's an actor? And to think that, like, he's got to see the commercial. It's like so asinine. It is fucking ridiculous.
Well, they control the TVs.
I know. I know. I thought of that too, but it's like they have to know exactly where they go to lunch. It's like,
well, he's got to be bugged, right? I mean, like, that's what it comes down to. But
maybe,
it's like,
but they could just drop that reveal, like put that in the script,
Yeah, it's like have a guy in a van or in a control room. It's like, oh, he's calling his wife.
They could have even done that. They could have even written that in, like if they had done that with the detective, right? Like if he was like always kind of there.
Yeah.
Throughout the whole movie, and then he does do the confrontation, and it's like, oh, well, he's being followed, right? Yeah.
You know what? Another movie that has kind of a interesting kind of sort of a rug pull, but works so much better because the rug pull is revealed early.
Top
Cabin in
Secret?
the Woods.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Cabin in the Woods is excellent. But
And I
that's a
guess,
late rug
I
pull.
guess, even if they show you that there is a private detective, air quotes, like that should imply that they have probably multiple people watching him, right?
Yeah.
But it gets like into this situation of
You have to do too much thinking to
how
arrive at-
many people are in on this. It gets to the point of the ridiculous. Yeah.
That's why the bill is so large.
Yeah, yeah. Which is
a
a funny joke. Like, that's the
Right.
best thing in the movie. It's funny. It's like, oh, we're self-aware now. Cool.
So anyway, we don't need to belabor
Yeah.
all the things that happen. He ends up at CRS with Rebhorn. They break in. They have that. It is a great scene. All the actors are in the break room.
Mm-hmm.
You see the taxi driver that drove him into the water is sitting with Deborah
Christine.
Kara Unger,
Yep.
Christine. Thank you. Some
I like
other,
that guy, by the way. Tommy Flanagan. Just want to quick shout out to Tommy Flanagan. He was in Face Off, Braveheart.
Oh, that's that dude.
Yeah, Gladiator. Like, if you need a guy with a wicked face scar, you call Tommy Flanagan. Like, he's badass. Anyway, go ahead.
I need a guy. So
Sin City. He's in Sin City. Yeah.
I'm gonna call his ass.
Calls that. I need a wicked face guy.
But they
I need a guy with a fucking wicked face scar. Yeah.
They end up on the roof of the CRS building, and he takes Christine at gunpoint up there, and she talks about how, hey, that is not the gun you're supposed to have. Right? Like, there's supposed to be whatever is on it. Like, that's a real gun. Hey, this is a game. When he went into the water, there were scuba divers. Everyone's waiting on the
When
other
they
side
were
of
shooting
the
at us,
door.
it was all fake.
It was all
bullets.
blank.
It was all squibs and
Yeah.
blanks and all that.
Right.
To which,
Which is a shit ton of
Right,
squibs
that
to
is-
set up in
yes.
advance.
well, wait a minute.
They're gonna know exactly where he's gonna run and have the. Oh my god,
Yeah,
that's
but wait
so
a minute.
infuriating.
Yeah,
it's so
here's
infuriating.
the thing that I dislike.
It's so
is when-
infuriating.
When he was at Christine's house,
Mhm.
there are holes in her fucking walls.
Yeah,
Those ain't blanks.
yeah.
Well, I would have, or they had little explosives set up in the walls. That is what
but
I
come on.
assume.
I mean,
yeah, I mean,
that's. I don't think it's safe to
The
assume
level-
that because
the
it's
level
like
of
the
detail
movie
they've
has to happen.
done.
Yeah,
The level of detail they've done everything else in. I mean, they shoot through the lock of the door. Like,
I mean, this
it's
movie
probably a real
cost
gun.
this movie cost $70 million to make. How much did the game cost?
$700
more.
million.
Right.
way more, way
Yeah,
fucking
way
more.
more.
And that. All right, yeah. I'll get to my final thoughts later, like Jerry
I
Springer.
mean, we're almost there.
We're almost there.
So she's explaining to him it's just a game. She's like, Connie's on the other side of that door right now. Everything's a game. You have a real gun. Don't be an idiot. They're drilling or sawing through the doors. The doors open, and Michael Douglas just shoots.
Yeah.
Which you
Shoots
do
the
split
champagne
second.
glass.
Yeah, for a split second you do see Connie is like, "Hey, happy birthday!"
Yes,
Coming out
Shoots
like the
champagne
fucking like he's fucking Gatsby.
Gatsby.
Yeah,
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
with a great pen. The champagne bottle blows up. There's a shot in his chest, and Rebhorn and Christine are like, he's dead.
You shot him.
Yes. You shot him, he's dead. And then, Rebhorn's going into the thing, like, you can never lose sight of the mark. You have to take care of the mark, and blah, blah, blah. And all the while, Nick is walking to the edge of the roof, like his
How do
dad
they know
had.
which edge of the roof that was?
Because it's right behind where he shot Conrad.
But there are three edges.
I'm guessing they knew he was going to turn around based on the testing he did and walk He walks right off the ledge of the roof. I mean, that's the only thing we can assume. It's dumb as fuck.
My guess is that all three corners
Had like
yeah.
right, they were all like blocked off somehow.
By the way, he
yeah.
does go through glass. I don't
It's
care.
breakaway.
I know.
I don't care.
But if you look at that, because I was actually paying specific attention to it because I knew the ending, and I was like, there are beams, there are all sorts of shit that he just narrowly misses, and it's like, fucking bullshit, motherfucker. This was what I hated about this movie when I saw it in the first time. I was like, that is some bullshit. Like, it wasn't even necessarily the thematic element of it. It was the logistics of him jumping to his death through that fucking pane of glass.
That's not even the biggest bullshit.
And landing. Movie. I know it isn't. But that was what annoyed me when I was 18 years old. I'm way more annoyed now.
You know what annoys me now? I'll tell you.
Okay.
Because he lands in a big old pillow.
Mm-hmm.
He lives, and everyone's like, "Oh, hey, clappy, clappy." And every actor that knew he was going to shoot his brother.
Yeah.
Apparently the end goal was to make him shoot his brother, make him a fucking murderer, and then call him cured of whatever ailed him. Like, how fucking ridiculous and stupid. That's the stupidest thing in this movie to me. Is like, hey, he's a murderer.
I'm not sure he knew when he fired the gun that it was his brother.
No, he didn't, but it didn't matter who it was.
I know. He killed somebody, but yes. I mean, honestly, in a court of law, that dude is getting acquitted. Like, getting fucking acquitted.
Maybe.
Like, if he had actually killed someone, oh my god, he's been through the absolute goddamn ringer, and the person he killed was in a conspiracy to make him a crazy person. Like, that is the easiest. That's the easiest acquittal in the world.
He also signed a contract to play this game.
I don't know though, man. I don't know.
It'd be an interesting court case. I think.
Feel like his
waiver had invisible ink, so I don't know.
Yeah, true. Go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was going to say, I feel like his lawyers got this handled.
I think his lawyers got this for sure, especially if he didn't have his money stolen.
But they did make him a fucking murderer.
But they made him a murderer.
Celebrated him.
But honestly, they made him. They made him
into the party.
They made him a suicide. They made him a suicide, guys. Like that's what fucking drives me crazy.
That too, Jesus, I was so mad about the killing.
They made him someone who was so distraught with himself that he decided he needed to end his life. Like, that is so fucking bullshit. I can't even express it. Like,
that's actually the worst part.
It's honestly devastatingly sad. And it's like, this is how they're going to help him confront his trauma over his own dad's suicide, by actually jumping off of something with the intent to kill himself as well. It's like so fucking bullshit. Like, I hate it. It is
bullshit.
I hate it.
I've seen some people I don't know if it's in defense of the end of this movie, say that some people who have jumped and survived have realized in their jump that their problems aren't that bad and they've been given a new lease on life.
Right. I've read the same thing too.
Still not enough.
But to drive someone to it.
Yeah, driving. Yeah, that's
the worst type of manipulation I can think of. It's awful. It's awful.
It is awful.
The hubris of that is just like, oh. It's like, honestly, that's the height of a psychotic narcissist in his brother, to think this is how I have to cure my brother of his Scroogeness. Ugh. It's so fucked.
This is why you cannot think about this movie.
Oh, but you have to. Like, as a person with a brain, you have to think about it. Like,
right, but like 20 years ago, I was like, that was just a fun ride.
Right.
Now, yes, it does ask you to think about it. We can't even get into like class stuff that it's
interesting though, because when I saw this one as 18, the ending bothered me, but it didn't bother me quite the way it bothers me now. But there was a nugget of it. Like, it was there. It was a lodge. It was like, there's something about this that I don't like. And it's taken, almost 30 years to fully articulate it.
Well, when I was 12 years old, I really liked writing wooden roller coasters. When I was 27 years old, I really hated riding roller coasters that were wooden because my balls hated it.
They beat you up.
Yeah. But when you're 12, your balls don't get as badly beat up by it.
Thank
Fuck
you,
just
Enema
your balls.
Thank you, Enema
Well,
Man,
everything.
for making your presence known and bringing a perspective to the conversation
That's why
that only the Enema Man can.
The Enema Man can.
Enema Man can. Oh my god, we should do a
Take
Willy
a
Wonka episode.
Take a movie out. Sorry, I'm not going to keep going.
Yeah, well, that's good because I was about to hire you.
Yeah, because you're gonna have to freestyle, and that's a dubious in all occasions. Yep.
Anyhow, no, I mean, here's the thing. Again, this movie has stuff in it that I think is interesting. Like
I
the
agree.
whole concept of like you are going to be put on this ride with this character, for the most part, is interesting. Although I think it's so high stress that you get worn out way before the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And that's when I started to wander. It was around Act 2, like it was about what's this? It's a 129-minute movie. I would say around 100 and about at about 95 minutes, I was like, I'm worn out, and my brain started to float away from me, and I'm like, I got that. Yeah.
I was into it though. I was into it. I wasn't floating away because I was kind of like, I'm sorry, Chuck, but I was kind of hate watching this movie at one point. I was like, I want to register every moment because I know how this goes, and the more I thought about how it goes, the more I hated it. Right? Because I hadn't really thought about this movie in a long time, and I was thinking about the ending, and for 120 minutes, that's all I thought about. And I'm just like, oh, I can't believe that that's where this movie concludes. It could have been better, but it also, I don't think it was ever going to be good.
I will say this. You don't ever have to apologize to me because even the movies I bring all the time aren't always going to be great movies, right? But even if I think they are and you don't, totally cool.
Well,
That's
I made you all watch five American Ninja movies last month. So it's okay. Like you get all the passes in the world.
But my point is,
I just didn't expect the reaction I was going to have to this movie. I really didn't.
The point is, yes, and I understand that, and I think that's what's valuable about this, like talking about movies.
Yeah.
Because we can arrive at these different conclusions. Jeff didn't know before, you're vehement, and I'm like, I still kind of like it, but I'm mad at the end. And you're like, I want to kill David Fincher for doing this. I want to throw him off a building.
I would never do that.
Say that.
I will say, though, that David Fincher has said that this is one of the movies he most regrets making. So take that for what it is.
Makes sense.
One thing I do want to say about the end, the very, very end, I think does also have a nugget of something interesting in it.
I agree. It could have been a little bit more though.
Because he follows Christine out. She's getting into a cab. I'm headed to Australia for my next game. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, well, when you get back, would you like to have dinner? How about you come to the airport for a drink before I get on my flight? Mm-hmm. If he takes that, he's learned nothing. He's back to being selfish, and or at least self-centered. But why?
I
don't think he's back to being self-centered.
He's leaving the party that is everybody is there for him. I mean, he's separating himself again from loved ones.
That's a fair point. Because he has learned to accept, but honestly,
well, you're mad at Sean Penn.
I'm mad at Sean Penn. I'm mad at his closest brother. I think he's a fucking asshole. I really do. Right. Like Sean Penn is a fucking piece of shit.
I'll take the other side.
Maybe his intentions were good, but fuck him.
I think if he goes, that's shown that he has grown as a person too. So there's two sides.
I have a totally different take.
What is it?
what if it's still the game?
Yeah,
Well, it could
still
be.
be.
It
It
could
could still
still
be
be the
part of
game.
it. It could be the final test, right?
Yeah.
Like, what's
What
he
if it's
going
still
to
the
do
game?
with this second chance?
Yeah.
Personally, like, I do want to go back. Jason, you had mentioned that you generally just have always liked Deborah Kara Unger.
Yeah, I
There
do.
is something about her look that is, you can't help but to look at her.
She kind of reminds me of Ali Larder.
Yeah, like an older
They both
bit,
Ally
have
little
that
bit.
similar look.
Yeah, like because her eyes are a little higher set on her face, where she has like a kind of a smaller forehead. There's just something interesting about her, the way she looks, and yeah, it's like I'm gonna follow that. Sure, let's do
Yeah.
it. Let's go.
She can be my white rabbit.
Yeah, let's go.
Well, she got this role. This is funny. She sent in an audition tape, a reel tape of just her in a sex scene from David Cronenberg's Crash.
That's awesome.
And I guess Michael Douglas watched it and he thought it was a joke.
Is this the
but
game? Am I in the game?
Right. And he was like, "Is this a joke?" And then they brought her in to audition, and him and Fincher were both like super impressed. And like, yeah, she's got it. Same year she made No Way Home, which is a Buddy Giovinazzo film, which is she's so good in that. Payback, she was in that. She had a pretty significant role in Payback with the remake with Mel Gibson. Yeah.
She was in The Hurricane, too.
Yes, she was. So she had like this run in the late 90s that was really, really good. And then she just got Salt and Sea as well.
Yeah.
I mean, she's in a lot of stuff since then, but nothing I really
Right, but
know.
nothing that really stands out. I remember her in 13. I think she was one of the moms in 13. I remember her. Paranoia 101 is this weird fucking movie that I would never recommend to anyone, but that like set off my whole obsession with Iceland for a strange reason that I absolutely adore. She's in that. But yeah, she kind of fell off the map a little bit. But she was, for a minute, she was it. And I for some reason it was like she was a face and a name that I recognized immediately. Yeah.
The Game.
The Game.
The Game.
I think we did it.
I think we did it. I mean,
Yeah, we did it. We did a good job.
It's. I mean, I'm not sorry I saw it.
Me neither.
It's a fun ride.
I'm not going to
Just
watch
don't
it
think
again,
about it
and
too
it's fine.
much.
Yeah, I mean,
I think I'm happy to finally like put a pin on the Game. Like, I think this is one that it'd been a long time coming on
You
a
have your
rewatch.
final opinion on
Yeah.
the Game. Yeah.
Yeah,
I can see
yeah,
that.
yeah. It feels like a good bookend.
Yeah.
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 Fincher's the best, that's for sure.
No, but maybe close to his worst though. Close to, yeah.
Fair. Jeff,
Yeah.
what's coming up, man?
Yeah, so next week on Wednesday, June 19th, this is one where I'm really curious because, Chuck, I don't know if you've seen this movie at all. Jason, I know you saw this movie when it came out on DVD.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we are going to watch The Specials. What's The Specials? Probably a whole lot of people just asked. It is the first rodeo of, at least in terms of the script, that where oh my god, now I can't why
James
am I
Gunn?
James Gunn, holy shit. I completely yeah, anyway, it was his first go around with a superhero movie.
Yeah,
It is super
yeah.
low budget, and it is one of two movies that was very, very, very like it was one of two movies where I felt like I was seen as the person that I was in the late 90s and early 2000s. And I'm excited to revisit that. So yeah, Rob Lowe, Jamie Kennedy,
Yeah, there are a lot of
have a
names.
funny
There are a lot
story.
of names in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we
might
have a
have
funny story about this
About
movie.
We
Jamie
do.
Kennedy from this movie.
And
Yes.
James
Uh-huh.
Gunn, yeah.
Oh, your girl Melissa Joan Hart
Yeah,
is
she has
in
a
this.
bit scene in it where
Yeah.
it's pretty funny. But anyway,
Karen Manning. Wow. Yeah.
yeah, you get and Penelope is in it too.
Penelope.
Yeah,
Oh, that's a deep cut.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not
Jenna
Penelope?
Fisher. Jenna Fisher's in this movie. What the hell?
Yeah, and it has one of the funniest edits in the history of film, and I can't wait to see it again. But anyway, yeah. So the specials next Wednesday. You can go to filmseizure.com. You can check out like where we have all of our social medias, where you can find us on the various podcast sites, subscribe to the show, and so forth. But yeah, also at filmseizure.com, this upcoming Monday, a new episode of Monster Mondays where I talk about the Mummy's Ghost.
Ooh.
So yeah, Mummy's Ghost. The Mummy's Ghost. So that is Monday afternoon, also filmseizure.com. This upcoming Friday at my website, bmovieanima.com, I have a review of Strangeland, D. Snyder's movie it's one of those near miss movies where it's like, if it took the right little turn, it could be maybe a hidden gem, but it like the near miss on that turn caused it to fall way off a fucking bottomless pit into Pittsville.
I was living in California, working at Blockbuster Video when that came out. I remember bringing that home. Yep.
Yep. So I got a review of that. That is Friday morning, bmovieanima.com. This upcoming Saturday, you can also check out a new episode of B Movie Anima, the series. It is Warrior of the Lost World.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Warrior.
Yeah. So Mad Max ripoff, sort of.
Yep.
Anyway. We did it.
I think we did.
All right. So
Until next time.
Yeah. Until next time, I'm IP Freely.
I'm Seymour Butts.
And I'm just Jason Oliver, hanging out. Thank you for listening to Film Seizure.
That's how you podcast.
That's how you podcast.